The Indianapolis Colts still do not have a head coach. But we heard from the owner himself this week, and things are going to be coming in a matter of days, not hours. So let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore. His name is Drake Wally, my esteemed colleague at Horseshoe Huddle. Drake, how you doing, man? It's a Wednesday night. We're not usually meeting on Wednesday nights here, but hey, my wife's birthday is tomorrow night, so I'm a little preoccupied going and celebrating with her, going out to dinner. But how you doing, man? Since the last time we spoke on camera, I guess Monday evening, are you hanging in there with this coaching search still?
Barely. This is getting pretty. It just becomes more and more tense while also becoming more and more just annoying. But look, man, you're trying not to miss this. All right. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh well, they're taking too long. If they start getting into the combine, then we might have to call Mr. Irsay.
Right. Well, at this point, they've waited this long. Old Jimmy boy, Jimmy from the Colts. Can you just hold off till after the Super Bowl? Because I got my wife's birthday. I'm going out of town this weekend to go see her family for my sake. Jimmy, just please hold off until Monday, and then we can talk about it live on the show. Chad saying, I ain't missing this time, boys. It's great to see you back, and happy birthday to my wife. I'll make sure to pass that message along for you. Dwayne, what's up, Colts family? It's good to see you taking in the episode. And then Sarah, I'm ready for the coaching decision. I think we all are at this point, like we were saying. It's going to be wild. And hey, Stats Matt hasn't commented yet. I know he's watching, but Matt, if you are watching and something does break, please just call me. Just call me. You got my number, and then so that way we can get our gut reaction live on the show tonight. But hey, if you haven't done so already, we really do appreciate everyone that has subscribed to the channel. Our numbers have never been better. Honestly, they are skyrocketing, and it's because of you guys. So please, let's keep the train rolling. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow Colts on FN on Twitter, and then subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, because as we've been saying for weeks, as soon as the Colts announce their head coach, we are going live that night to discuss everything. So, and I think we are actually getting close. I fully believe it's less than a week away. Steve, good to see you, man. Says I put my money on Monday. Yeah. That would be glorious. That would be glorious for us. That would be for me personally. Let's just get the Super Bowl out of the way with at this point, and then we can talk. We can talk about who the next head coach of the Colts is going to be. But Drake, we did get an update from Jim Irsay yesterday. We thought, hey, it was about maybe Tuesday was going to be the day that the Colts announced who the head coach was going to be. I even said, hey, it was a beautiful day to hire Brian Callahan as the next head coach. But as we saw from the owner, the Colts have a different agenda going on. So let's talk about what the owner did say yesterday. I'm going to pull up his tweet right here for you guys and read it. He said, we said as an organization, meaning the Colts, the coaching search would be an open-minded and a thorough process. And the final decision would be strictly based on what is best for our franchise success and best for our fans of Colts Nation. Final decision coming in days, not hours. So that was what happened last night around, I'd say 4:00. I was out walking the dog with my wife. It was a beautiful day up here in northern Indiana. But Drake, let's dive into it. Jim Irsay saying days, not hours. What did you take from that? You actually wrote a piece on that last night after he did tweet that. Where do you think the Colts are right now in their coaching search?
I personally think they are incredibly close. I think that they are just delegating amongst each other right now, who are, mostly Ballard and Irsay, I think, are really just trying to, are you sure? Is this who you want? Who do you want? I'm down to my last candidate. What about you? Like that whole third interview thing. I'm not going to lie, due to the whole process and the whole season and the knee-jerk decisions that were made, I was like, that's got to be happening. But then once someone was like, the Colts have confirmed the reports are saying that's not going to happen. I was like, that actually makes sense. Like, what the heck could you possibly talk about? But yeah, I think that they are close. I just think that they're getting down to those last little tidbits of information. Here's my last minute concerns. Here's my last minute, arguments for why not. And I think you're going to see a decision pretty soon.
I do as well. I think when he says days, not hours, and I'll kind of give you guys some insight into what I'm hearing. The Colts are not going to do a third round of interviews, so that's good. We know that there aren't going to be more interviews that are still to come. The Colts are done with those interviews. That being said, there is still a lot of discussions behind the scenes because you have to think about it. The Colts had 7 finalists for this head coaching job, 7 guys that got second interviews. So when you've spent 16 to 18 hours with those people, that's a lot of information. And this again, while Irsay will make the final decision, this is a collaborative effort right now. It's not just them giving 2 to 3 names and then the Colt and then Jim Irsay is going to pick one out of a hat. As Rich Wheeler says, day 31, hang in there, guys. Almost feels like we're reaching the season finale of the series. Loss. Appointment to be made, by the way, of Abby's hat pick. So yeah, Abby's hat pick, as Jim Irsay loves to tweet, is not going to be the one that decides this head coach. But they're having these long discussions and deliberations. They want to make sure they're not missing anything, and I think that's okay. At this point, it's okay because the only other team out there that is looking for a head coach at this point is the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals finalists, none of those guys are finalists for the Colts. They will get their choice of pick for their next head coach. They're going through all the information as they've sat down with these coaches, and they're making sure that they're not missing anything. They want to be confident on their decision. To me, it tells me that there's 2 to 3 guys that are very close, which I really think they are, and they're really trying to decide which is the best route for this franchise to go, not only for next year, but you're trying to forecast 5 to 10 years in the future.
Well, I completely understand. I mean, like Rich said there in the comments, 31 days. I can't remember the last time I've heard of a coaching search lasting so long in the NFL. I also can't remember the last time I heard of a third interview even thrown out there, or of so many interviews in the initial round, then 7 in another round or in the second round, and you even now have Eric Bieniemy's name somehow, some way floating around there, like he hasn't even had a second interview. And well, that doesn't matter. It's Jim Irsay. It's like, man, that Jeff Saturday hire really, really made people forget the previous 24 years of Jim Irsay. And it's really a patient guy who wants to get this right. He doesn't want to upset the fan base. But I was going to say, I mentioned at the end of that piece that I wrote, everyone should be looking at this far more like as a good thing than a bad thing. All right. After the disaster that was the Jeff Saturday era, this is what should have been done is they should have been combing through every single person, making sure no stone was left unturned, making sure they're not going to let some guy that is going to light up the league go away with or without an interview. I mean, they are really dotting every I, crossing every T. They're not going to mess this up. And, if it somehow blows up in their face, they can say they tried their absolute best to get the right guy.
Yeah, and then that kind of takes us into our next point that Marvin Fox. I know I see Marvin all the time commenting on my articles on Facebook. So shout out to Marvin for that. If it was Callahan, it seems like they would make the announcement. Steichen waiting until after the Super Bowl, and Marvin knows my love for Callahan, saying sorry, Andrew. And Chad also kind of says the same thing. I took either Steichen or Callahan. Have been chosen behind closed doors and they're waiting until Monday, but leaning more towards Steichen due to the Super Bowl. And that's kind of the next question that I want to pose to you, Drake. Do you think that this really is because it's going to be Shane Steichen or Eric Bieniemy, one of the 2 coordinators that's coaching in the Super Bowl this weekend? I think there's certainly a chance that it could be, but what do you think?
Well, and that's one of the biggest reasons that Eric Bieniemy's name is getting brought up now is because they're approaching the Super Bowl, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's either going to be Steichen or this and that." I honestly don't think that the Super Bowl has as much to do with it as people think. I truly believe they are so concerned to screw up. They are not taking any chances. They're not rushing it. If they even feel like they're rushing it 5 extra minutes, Ballard's the kind of guy that's going to be like, now hold on a second, hold on, stop. Like, he's going to halt you. He's so ridiculously smart, so patient. He's not going to push this at all if he doesn't have to. But of course, I think Monday, in my humble opinion, has got to be a deadline of sorts. You know what I mean? Like, because otherwise you're approaching, combine time, and that's just not good.
Yeah, and I do think that Shane Steichen is one of the finalists. I think he is probably up there in my top
Oh yeah.
three, and I think the Colts top three at this point: Brian Callahan, Raheem Morris, and Shane Steichen. I think Eric Bieniemy's name is generating some interest, but Bieniemy never got a second interview. And I don't think that he is very high on the Colts list. Otherwise, they would have brought him back for a second interview for one of those 12-hour days that the rest of the candidates received. So I think if it is going to be a coordinator front that's in the Super Bowl, it would be Shane Steichen. But I don't necessarily think, and obviously it could be Steichen. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't think that as of right now the Colts are holding off just because it is Steichen. I don't think it necessarily means that. Like as of yesterday, from what I was hearing, they were still deliberating on what coach they wanted to choose. It's not oh well, we know it's going to be Steichen, we knew it on Monday, we're just not going to say anything. No, the Colts are going to take these next few days to really make sure that they are on the same page, because and I think we all know that the Jeff Saturday hire is out the door. Jeff Saturday will not be the next head coach. It will be about making sure that Irsay, Ballard, and Carly Gordon, or Carly Irsay Gordon, Jim's daughter, as Chad asked, do you think Jim and his daughter are arguing about Saturday? I do not. I don't think
Yeah,
that
no.
I think that Jeff Saturday, I don't think he's being considered. I really think it is down to these three guys, and they just want to make sure that they're right. As Wyatt, good to see you, man. The collaborative process going on is kind of what's supposed to happen in Congress. Smart people debating the direction the franchise will take, and hopefully arriving at a consensus decision. And I like how you put that, Wyatt. It does seem like the Colts have been so thorough on this. They've gone to such extensive lengths to really dive into each one of these candidates. They want to make sure they get the right guy. And at this point, yes, everyone wants to know, but as far as waiting a few more days, letting the Super Bowl pass, and kind of making their hire on Monday or Tuesday, making it known, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing at this point, especially when you consider that the defensive staff is mostly going to stay with Gus Bradley and Richard Smith, Ron Miles. The special team staff, for everything that I'm hearing, is probably going to stay with Bubba Ventrone. It's not like you are trying to find 11 different coaches to fill out the staff. It's going to be a new offensive staff, but it's not going to be a whole shift across the board. And I think that works in the Colts' favor.
Well, there's actually two things real quick about Jeff Saturday. Number one, if look, Jim Irsay made a mistake. He was frustrated. He turned into his dad Bob a little bit, but he's a smart guy. He's a laid back guy. He's an easy guy to get along with, and I don't think that he would be waiting until after the Super Bowl to hire Jeff Saturday. You would not have even had probably a fourth or fifth second interview request. You would have been like, hey, we're good, we got our guy. Jeff Saturday would have been the coach by now. And actually, there's a brand new quote down here that says Jeff tips it from Chad. It says Jeff tips his hat and returns to retirement, or do you see him staying in some capacity? Retirement, because I don't see him staying in any capacity. Number one, he said he wants to be the head coach. He was actually asked, hey, would you take another role? Even though he'd be a fantastic strength coach, probably be a fantastic O-line coach, because it's not too much. It's one position that he played and was the general of the line. But also the new coach who does come in, it probably isn't going to want to keep Jeff Saturday around. It's no knock on him personally. It's just he doesn't have coaching experience. He doesn't really know what he's doing outside of, like I said, offensive line, which also, like I said, he has completely said, I don't want that. I want the head coach. So it's all or nothing. I think he's retiring.
Right, it's right there, and I don't think even retiring. I mean, he'll probably just go back to ESPN if I had to predict what
Yeah,
Jeff
makes a
Saturday
lot of
would
money
do.
there. So
Jeff, I mean, he already said I don't want to be an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or a special teams coordinator. He turned down the Colts multiple times when they asked him to come on board to be the offensive line coach. He wants the head coaching job and the head coaching job only. And if he does not get that, he will go back to ESPN. And Wyatt Law makes a good point. NFL frowns on announcements during Super Bowl week that might distract from their crown jewel. It just came out that Adam Schefter tweeted that the Cardinals would not be making a head coaching hire this week. They're the team that's hosting the Super Bowl at their stadium. So the Cardinals aren't going to be announcing their hire until next week. So before we move on to some Super Bowl talk, Drake, if you had to put your money down, only one day, you can only choose one day. When will the Colts announce, or when will it get reported? When will it leak that the Colts have made a decision on their next head coach?
I would say in the next 20 to 25 minutes would be perfect. But that ain't going to happen. So I would say Monday. I would say Monday is not only the most realistic day, but it's probably going to happen. Kind of like I believe it was mentioned in the comments that someone put their money on that. So I think that's a good call. I think that Monday is probably going to be the best bet.
Chad agrees. Chad says Monday. He also says Sunday at 11 p.m. I don't, that would be something that Ballard would love to do to make it stay under the radar. But yeah, I mean, I think I think Monday would be a good day. They would take this week, maybe sit on it for the weekend, meet again on Monday, and then maybe we get an announcement Monday afternoon. For us, that would be perfect because we would be doing our show Monday night. However, if it goes on to Tuesday, if the NFL wants to have a day where that team gets their glory for winning the Super Bowl, I think it's Tuesday. It's going to be Monday or Tuesday, early next week. At the latest, we will have a decision and we will know who the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts will be. Fingers crossed. From personally, it's Brian Callahan, but we'll have to see how that goes. So let's move it along. Drake, we're going to actually talk about other things that aren't related to the Colts for once. I think that might be one of the first on this show, but we're moving on. We got to talk about the Super Bowl. We just have to talk about the Super Bowl today. Chiefs, Eagles in Glendale. The Chiefs are 1.5-point underdogs to the Philadelphia Eagles this week. So let's start with I think probably strength on I would say strength on strength, but I think that's going to be the most fascinating matchup in this game. The Chiefs offense versus that Eagles defense. So how do you see that playing out? What do you think the keys to that matchup are going to be? And who do you think has the upper hand in there?
I mean, look, the Chiefs offensive line, they've played pretty well, but that is a world destroyer of a defensive front. I mean, you have got Fletcher Cox, you have, I believe, Ndamukong Suh is still on the front, and he's just destroying everybody right in the middle, allowing lanes to open up. You still have Brandon Graham. I'm probably missing a couple other. Hassan Reddick. Yeah, I believe he led the NFL in sacks, didn't he? I mean, it's like
he was, I think, second or third.
That's a team that had 4 players that had 10 or more sacks. Okay, that is absolutely terrifying for any offense, and I think that the Chiefs, though, they do still have Patrick Mahomes. They do still have an ability to, get the ball out quick if he needs to. He's also got a rocket arm. If they can keep the front of the Eagles away, I think that they could really light up the defense, at least maybe in the second half. But it's going to take an effort and a half to get, Mahomes to not get sacked, hit, especially when he's still kind of rehabbing that injury.
Yeah, and Camden, you know the way to my heart. Anytime someone says "Let's go Callahan," you're getting a shout out on the show. You just know that's going to happen. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be. That's the reason I made this the biggest matchup is because the Eagles led the league as a team in sacks. They had 70, including the playoffs. The Eagles have 78 sacks this season. That's just absurd. they are incredible at getting after the quarterback. And then you combine that with a Chiefs offensive line that has struggled at times. You combine that with the fact that Patrick Mahomes, while he has had almost 2 weeks now to continue to heal up that high ankle sprain, he still isn't going to be at 100%. We're not going to see Patrick Mahomes at 100% for this game. So it's really going to be on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to get creative with how they can combat this this Eagles pass rush. And I think Dan Orlovsky did a great job of kind of dissecting what the Chiefs could do. And that's use the screen game to their advantage. So you're going to have these Philadelphia pass rushers pinning their ears back and wanting to get after Mahomes. But then you've got Isaiah Pacheco, who has been a phenomenal find by Brett Veach and that Kansas City front office. He has just kind of found another gear out of the backfield for that Chiefs offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming off of IR and will be available. Now, we talked about how McCole Hardman isn't going to be available because of his injury. Kadarius Toney, I don't know if he's banged up. As Chad says, the Chiefs are all hurt. Eagles are going to dominate. And Marvin says that Mahomes has to have a healthy ankle. So if not, we might not see the Chiefs offense be as explosive, maybe the huge throws down the field. But I do see the screen game really being used to try to neutralize the pass rush of the Eagles. And then don't be surprised if we see a lot of Travis Kelce, because I think the weak link of that Eagles defense is their linebacking core. And when you have the best tight end in the NFL and Travis Kelce roaming around the middle, I think he's going to eat. So that's one way to think about it here. And then we'll talk about Quentin says, I hope not that they don't give the job to Jeff Saturday. I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But Camden says, I don't see Mahomes running away from the Eagles linebacking core. Take his legs away and the Chiefs lose. And we saw he did just enough to beat the Bengals a couple weeks ago with his legs. We'll why not? Let's take one more Colts question. Once the dust settles, does Jim Irsay get his good name back? So many cheap shots have been taken at his expense. He deserves better. The term meddler has gotten tossed around a bit too often. And Wyatt, honestly, I think it's because he's earned it. He has earned it because he has been meddling. It's not only been this season, but you talk about how he's the one that said get rid of Carson Wentz because no matter what, before the Colts had a plan. He stepped over Frank Reich saying that you need to put Sam Ellinger in and bench Matt Ryan when Frank Reich didn't want to. And then he went over Chris Ballard, hiring Jeff Saturday when Ballard wanted to promote Bubba Ventrone as the interim head coach. So he has meddled, and I think that's how quickly you can lose a good reputation in the NFL, is because it's okay. You can do all of that, but then once you start meddling again like that, it really shows you can mess it up. So I do think that Jim Irsay, his reputation hasn't been tarnished. Wouldn't say that, because Jim Irsay is still an incredible human being, one of the biggest hearts in the NFL, but he has meddled and he does need to take a step back. Would I say he is going to meddle for the rest of his time as the owner of the Colts? I hope not. And I hope he has seen what has transpired over the past year, but I think it has been earned to say I wouldn't say he himself to the core is a meddler, but he has meddled over the past year to year and a half.
Yeah, and to kind of go based off of what you said, I mean, you're talking about a guy who was the number one donor to Damar Hamlin's cause after his incident on the field. I mean, and he's with the Colts and Damar Hamlin's with the Bills. So you're talking about a guy who loves football and he loves the foot like anybody in the NFL and just loves everybody, lover of people. But yes, absolutely. I remember writing a piece on Irsay saying that he's got to stop. He needs to stop right now, because if he keeps doing this in 23, he's going to destroy the franchise. And I think that he knows, and he's seen the quote unquote rotten fruit, if you will, of his decision making. But I think he's going to get his name back. I personally will predict, I guess, that he's going to let Ballard make this decision. He's going to kind of follow how he used to and be
he's going to follow the recommendation of Ballard at the end of all of this. Chad asks, when will they cut Matt Ryan? probably March. If Matt Ryan
Yep.
doesn't retire by March, we can expect him to be cut by the Colts. Stats, Matt. Now you finally show up when we're 24 minutes in. But as I was saying, I was actually giving you props, and I said, "Hey, Matt, if breaking news happens in the middle of the show, call me because you have my number." So be on the lookout if there is something that happens and the Colts do announce it. Stats, Matt, give me a call so that way I know. But then he says, if an owner has to tell his fifth-year GM and fourth-year head coach the way to go, then why does he have them? So it's just interesting. And like I said, I don't have any ill will towards Jim Irsay. He's a great human being. I do think he does need to step back a little bit. So, and Chad, the guaranteed money kicks in the third day of the league year in March. So that's why they would cut him in March. But let's get back to the Super Bowl here. Chiefs defense versus an Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, a bunch of weapons, and not even mentioning the incredible running game that Shane Steichen has put together with the Eagles. So Drake, how do you see the Chiefs defense matching up with this Eagles offense?
Well, I think that first off, I mean, Chris Jones is a world record himself. All right, I think he looking here at 15 and a half sacks. But here's the concern: the next one is George Karlaftis with 6.
Karlaftis. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're talking about a defense that is very dependent upon one man opening up lanes. I personally think that the Eagles, with 4 different guys who can get to the quarterback, along with Ndamukong Suh, that's a lot to block. I think that the Eagles can manage the front of the Chiefs, and I think that they can still get the job done on the ground. But I will say an X factor in this game. I think it's going to be Dallas Goedert. I think he's going to be a lot more involved than people might think. Everyone talks about Smith. Everyone talks about Brown and Gainwell and Sanders. But man, Goedert, he is an absolute monster on the field. He's got all the tools, and I think that he's going to have a bigger game than what you would think. He's going to get found a lot on that field.
The Eagles could just attack you from so many different angles. I mean, you've got AJ Brown, who is a mismatch all over the field. Devontae Smith, a former Heisman winner, a guy that has came into his own. You just mentioned Dallas Goedert, and then we're talking about one of the best running games in the NFL with Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. You talk about Jalen Hurts himself, who had 13 rushing touchdowns this year. They're just so multiple in the ways that they can beat you. And then that offensive line has been humming all year as well. It's going to take a big effort from this Kansas City Chiefs defense. And I think if they just allow the Eagles offensive line to kind of steamroll them, control the line of scrimmage, and then let them control the tempo with their running game, and then forcing all that pressure on Patrick Mahomes and allowing that Eagles pass rush to really get after him, it's going to be tough. It really is. So the Eagles both of these teams really are kind of teams that Ballard would love to build his team like the Philadelphia Eagles. He has ties to the Kansas City Chiefs, so there's ties to the Colts GM all over the place. My wife has joined the stream. It still says her last name is Dove. You need to change that, but hello, Danny. People in the chat are telling you happy birthday, so hope you feel loved there. But as Stats Matt says, Eagles have the advantage in the trenches on both sides, and then he says a Zach Pascal anytime touchdown. Wouldn't you love to see that? Zach Pascal getting his chance in the big game. You always love to see a former Colt, especially someone like Zach Pascal, getting shine in the big game.
Well, and one of the things that Zach Pascal for me is a lot like Jack Doyle, because I was like, oh, you're not going to miss him. Next thing
Now
you know,
more.
You're like, wow, there's no blocking from the tight end now. Well, Zach Pascal was one of the best blocking wide receivers. I mean, that guy would put the licking on you as far as a linebacker. He'd hit you with that jet sweep block. I mean, it would be so wonderful to see him not only score a touchdown, but win a Super Bowl, with the Eagles this Sunday.
Yeah, it really would be. And the Colts miss Zach Pascal a lot more than I think they realized they were going to. But Drake, now let's move along to let's get close to predictions. X Factor. Who do you think when this is all said and done, is going to be the determining player in this game?
I am going to go with Hassan Reddick on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, let's go back very briefly to when the Chiefs played the Buccaneers. They forced Patrick Mahomes to run a total of 500 yards in the backfield. That's not happening this time. Kind of like it was alluded to earlier, this is a better defense too. So it's going to be really difficult to get one. I think it's Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, and Hassan Reddick all had 10 or more sacks. Man, it's going to be really difficult to keep those guys away from Mahomes. And I just think Reddick's I'm going to go with the bold prediction. He'll have at least, I think he'll have at least 2 sacks. And then I think for the Chiefs, the X factor is going to be getting the ball out as quick as possible. If we're talking about Eagles defense and Chiefs offense, they got to get the ball out quick.
Christian saying Travis Kelce and Hassan Reddick will be the determining factors. It's going to be I think it's going to be crazy. We'll give a shout out to Tom Brady real quick. Hopefully you're enjoying retirement, man. He says, "Go Chiefs. I hate the Eagles because they beat me in the Super Bowl. Philly special." Your father Nick Foles isn't playing in this game, Tom, so I don't think you have to worry about that. Stats Matt, X factor is either Bradbury or CJ Gardner Johnson in the secondary for Philadelphia. I like that. My X factor is going to be I'm actually going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. I think that I almost said the Colts. I think that the Chiefs, it's going to be about neutralizing that pass rush and being able to contain and keep Patrick Mahomes good back there. And the best way to do that is with those quick passes. So if they can get those rolling, I really think that the Chiefs offense is going to have success against this Philadelphia defense. So, and as Danny says, thanks everyone. She put my crying face from our wedding, so I'm not throwing that comment up there to save myself some face here. But hey, last question of the night. Actually, I'm going to give you 2, Drake. We'll throw this one in here. Prediction: who's going to win, and who's your Super Bowl MVP?
So the Eagles are going to win this one. I think that it's going to go into half pretty tight, but I think that they're going to pull away in the second half. I'm going to go with you can't really keep Mahomes 2 scores. You can't give him – he's not going to stay behind that far. It's going to be 28-24. I think the Eagles. I think the Chiefs will rally late. But I think that the Super Bowl MVP somehow, some way is going to be Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders. Okay. Maybe like a 3 touchdown performance.
3 touchdowns, 100 rushing yards. I mean, he had like 1,200 rushing yards. He looked great in that offense. I think he's going to look really good on Sunday.
Right. Man, this game is tough. Because everything in me is saying, and in my head is saying, pick the Eagles because they've got the defense, they've got the running game. Jalen Hurts has been pretty good taking care of the ball. But man, it's just so hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes. And I think the magic is going to continue for this man. At the end of the day, when the teams are so close and it's only 1.5, I got to go with the quarterback. And it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. So Stats Matt says Philadelphia 31-27, Hurts 2 touchdown passes, 1 rushing touchdown. I got to go Chiefs 31-27. I really think that the over's going to hit. Over's at 50.5, so hammer the over. But I just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I think 2 weeks of rest on that ankle. I think Travis Kelce is going to be a nightmare. I think they'll be able to neutralize the pass rush with that quick passing game, and I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have a vintage performance where we're considering him. All this talk about, is Patrick Mahomes really the greatest quarterback in the league right now? I think he's going to shut all that up and really prove it. So I'm going Chiefs 31-27. I'm going Patrick Mahomes to throw for 327 yards, 3 touchdowns in a Chiefs victory. So that one's fun. Christian says the Eagles win, and I actually want to say Hassan Reddick or some defensive player for the Eagles to get MVP. Super rare, but hey, it does happen. And then Nathan, good to see you, man. It says safe to say Eagles offensive coordinator coming to next Monday for the Colts. We'll see. Go ahead and listen back to what we said. It could be, but it also could be the Colts are just taking their time, which I think is what's happening. So, but that's it for tonight's episode, guys. We really appreciate you following along. Christian, Nathan, Stats Matt, even though he came late, still got to give you some crap about that. Marvin, Tom Brady, Wyatt Law, Chad, my beautiful wife, Danielle Moore, which, by the way, happy birthday to her tomorrow.
Yay.
But please, I forgot to put the ticker back up after the tweet. But as it scrolls down, go ahead and give everything a follow. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live. Because, like I said, as soon as the Colts announce a head coach, we're going live that night to break it all down. So we'll get out of here. This will be our last episode for the week, maybe, unless again there is breaking news. So Drake, what are some things that you've been writing about? I know you've been writing away for horseshoehuddle.com. What you been working on, buddy?
Well, outside of the Irsay piece, I did a piece on Bernard Raymond, and it has he cemented himself as a serious left tackle. That's a position that the Colts have been in pain trying to replace since Costanzo retired. And I personally think that Raymond is a stud. So go read it and give me your opinion.
Awesome. Great piece, by the way. And then I wrote up on why I think Brian Callahan has the edge in the Colts head coaching battle. Some insight there into not only having a big cheerleader and someone vouching for him in Peyton Manning, but then I went into detail about his responsibilities with the Bengals. And he's not just a guy that just sits in the box and doesn't call plays. So, and as Marvin said, good read, Drake. So Marvin read your piece as well. So
Marvin is the man.
So go ahead and give Drake a follow on Twitter at @DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. Real quick, kind of end on a somber note, but I want to dedicate this episode to my uncle Johnny Patrick. He passed away Monday night. Was a huge Colts fan, and I had the opportunity a couple years ago to take him to his first Colts game. So memory I'll cherish forever. But so I thank everybody for following along, thinking about and sending well wishes this week. Johnny, gonna be missed, buddy. Gonna be missed. So, but we will be back again, whether it's in the next couple days if the Colts announce a head coach, but if not, we will be back here on Monday night, hopefully discussing a new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. So until then, have a good one, everyone.